Today's guest is Erika Kelly, and her story is going to interest you because it isn't the typical one. Erika grew up in a safe and almost idyllic home, one that's described by her as from the Nick at Night show. She was raised in the church and found comfort and faith in Jesus at an early age. Despite not having a tragic or traumatic upbringing, Erika's unique story has shaped her into the person she is today. So let's listen in. Welcome, Erika. It is so good to have you, and I am excited to interview you about your story. Welcome.
Thank you.
Erika and I talked a little bit last week, and I was asking the people on Facebook to offer some insight about their journeys. And Erika volunteered, and the purpose of that interview was to maybe put some stories in an upcoming book. But when I started listening to her, and I'm just like, oh, this is good. Would you do a podcast? Yes. So here you are.
Yeah, our last conversation wasn't very long.
Yeah. So this we can enjoy ourselves and chat more. I didn't want to get too far into it because it was so authentic and real. So let's just start with as much as you'll tell about, as much as you're willing to share, like where you live, how old you are, whether you're married, whether you have kids. That's kind of a good place to start and just share what you feel comfortable with.
Yep. So yes, my name is Erika. I'm excited to be here and share my story. I feel like I've just been really feeling led. I feel more than even just a nudge by the Holy Spirit. I feel kind of shoved by the Holy Spirit to
when that happens.
Get out there and share. And I'm not afraid, which is kind of cool. But I will be 42 this summer. And I am married. I live in the suburbs of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. We're about 45 minutes northwest of the Twin Cities area. So we're kind of right on the edge of small town and suburbs, which I like. We're close enough to cities to do things, but we're far enough out that it still feels like a small town. But it's not a small town. It's a very big suburb. So, but yeah, we have one son. His name is Jack.
All right, one son named Jack. How old is Jack?
Jack is 9. He'll be 10 this summer. So
okay. And do you work or do you stay home?
I do a little of both. I am primarily a stay-at-home homeschool mom to our son. And I do coach youth sports all the way through high school. So I've coached, let's see, I spent 16 years in a high school volleyball gym at various levels. I'm going into 12 years of high school fast pitch softball. And then I do a lot of youth volleyball as well within our community. So sports were a big, huge part of my upbringing.
I can't wait to ask you some questions then, if you're an athlete. So
yeah.
So next thing I'd like to ask you about is your drinking story. Like where did it start?
Yeah.
How did it progress? And when did you start going, uh-oh?
Yeah. I feel like, everybody's story is unique. In the brief period we spoke, last week, I know that you said, not everyone comes from, the alcoholic, whatever tragic trauma story. And I definitely did not. My upbringing was about I always joke and say I was raised in like a Nick at Night show because like that was kind of like, or like Leave It to Beaver, Donna Reed, like I grew up in a really safe, wonderful, God-fearing home. I grew up in the church. I met Jesus at an early age. My parents modeled the love of Jesus everywhere. They still do. My parents have been married for like 46 years. It'll be 46 years this summer. Um, and even up to my grandparents. My grandparents on my dad's side are still living. They're 93 and 94, and they just celebrated their 71st wedding anniversary. And they are very God-fearing people. Like I grew up around, and it wasn't shoved at me, it was just modeled to me. And so I just grew up in a really wonderful, awesome home. But I grew up in an era, and I think there's a lot of men and women, but I think there's a lot of women in my age group um, that, mental health wasn't talked about at all when I was growing up. And, now I can tell you that I battled anxiety severely as a teenager. I just felt like there was something wrong with me
Oh, I
because,
can't imagine. You're a couple of decades younger than me, but I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up in this world with social media
oh my
pressure.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I was right ahead of the social media curve as a teenager. But there was a lot more busyness in general in life, and there weren't a lot of resources or outlets, and again it wasn't talked about. I don't remember the first time I ever really like heard the word anxiety or anxiety explained to me, but
You
it
just
definitely
felt it.
wasn't
Yeah, you
when
just
I felt it huge. I mean, I remember like my first experiences as a high school volleyball player, and like I went into like blackout state. Like I had no control of my body. I was numb. I was having a panic attack, but I
I
didn't
was
know what
just
it
gonna say,
was.
wow, that sounds pretty serious. Yeah.
Yeah. And like sports are what I did. That was my outlet. And so, to like all of a sudden have this fear, and I've heard since then, people talk about performance-based acceptance. Um,
Oh,
and that
that
is
was my gig. That
definitely
was
yeah.
my gig. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, since I've been doing this, I do see uh, a link between being a good athlete and then later turning to a substance.
Mhm.
Because I think the world of athleticism does exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It links performance to work.
Yes. Yes.
And I had one person who was in that a coaching program with me, and she was like an Olympic athlete. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That
Yep.
level of a runner,
Yep.
and it just ended up really messing with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you don't either when you don't perform in which you're capable, or if you're not valued by a coach because you're not the best, the strongest, the fast, whatever sport it is, wherever, um,
The
you
bench.
know, right? It's like, where's my worth? And for a long, 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 long time, I had put my worth in athletics and music. I also sing, and I I would well, here's just a quick background to my singing and the things that I would do. So I tried it out knowing that I wasn't going to be able to participate in it. I tried out for Minnesota's all-state choir as a high school student, and they only accept like, I don't know, like 10 kids per class statewide. And I still tried out because I just needed to know that I could make it. And I made it. And no one ever makes all
Wow.
state choir and then turns it down. And I made it and turned it down because I had a softball tournament or something. I don't remember. I had something sports. Um, and so, but I just needed to know that I could make it so that I could like add that to my to my list of things that made me feel more worthy, more deserving. Um, so that was definitely something that I struggled with. I would say probably started feeling it around seventh, eighth grade. I really started putting my identity in those things. Um, and I ended up going on to um, a Christian college in Minnesota and played 4 years of college volleyball at Northwestern. It's now the University of Northwestern in the St. Paul area. And but when I was in school, it was still Northwestern College. But I played 4 years of college volleyball. Um, and then like college volleyball ended and I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know um who I was. I didn't know what I was going to do without competitive sports. Um, again, I have a great family. I have a great support system. Um, but I struggled. So, but it's interesting, that I didn't actually take my first sip of alcohol until I was, 22 years old, and not even like on my birthday or any, like it was just on a random, you know, evening, whatever. And, um, what I do remember, and I don't really feel like I battled the addiction piece of it until much later, but I
Mhm.
do remember that I just loved the feeling of not feeling. Like, just that instant high that you get of, um, everything,
Checking out.
all my stress just was like, you know? So again, I don't remember, and I don't feel like I battled the addiction part of it. Um, but I do very distinctly remember enjoying that rush and that first initial nothing matters anymore. I'm fine. Everything's great. Like that, just that feeling. And so, I would say I was a very typical early 20 somethings drinker. I would, drink on the weekends. I would go out with friends. We would do the club scene, the bar scene. Um, so I would say again, like your typical, like the social acceptance, right? You're old enough now, it's acceptable. You're over 21, you can do it responsibly. Um, and so I fell into that pattern for a while. I I left school. I actually I still have not graduated college. I have like something like 23 credits, 26 credits, somewhere in there. But I left school. I got a job and I actually ended up meeting my now husband. I got a job at Best Buy close to home and I worked there full time. My husband and I worked together. And we were just friends for about 3 years before we started dating. Um, and actually it was in the mid 20s that we broke up for a short period because I'm like, this is not what I like. We were starting to get serious and I just went, I don't want this for my life. I don't want to be this kind of wife, mom, any of it. And so I actually quit drinking for a good chunk of time, from like 25 to 27, 28. And when my, again, now husband, when we got back together, that was one of the
Well,
things that we had talked about.
what prompted you quitting?
I didn't want to be the mom that like couldn't wait to go out on a Friday night with your friends and leave her kids somewhere, or
Oh, so you recognized
I
that in your
recognized
drinking
that.
pattern.
Yep, I recognized that I was falling into that pattern, and I was falling into that pattern with someone that I was in love with, and that we were going to continue down that road if it
Wow.
didn't stop. Um, and he wasn't ready for that. And so we broke up for about 8 months. Um, and we were still working together. He ended up quitting the store that we were at, and he went and worked on a cruise ship in Hawaii because he just needed to like get out and get away. And he continued that lifestyle. And I stopped drinking for a good amount of time. And we got back together, and that was one of the conversations that we had, that, if this is going to work, we need to head in a different direction. Um, and so he still would have, go out with buddies and have a beer occasionally. I also don't think that, and I shouldn't even say I don't think, I know, um, alcohol didn't have the same effect on him that it was having on me. Um, and so for him to quit, or he's capable of moderating, of just having a drink and being done. He doesn't continue to chase that feeling, where I could already tell that I was chasing that, and I didn't want that to be a part of my marriage. Um, and it's so funny that I recognized that in my 20s, and then it was 10, 12 years later that I ended up actually falling back into that. Um, and so, um, yeah, we ended up getting married. We did not, neither one of us drank our entire engagement. We decided, you know what, we're going to have like a whole year off, and then we're going to celebrate our honeymoon with our like first drink as a married couple. And so, and then honestly, like, we never had alcohol at home until probably almost 10 years later. Maybe
Wow.
not quite 10 years, maybe it's more like 6 or 7, but we didn't keep alcohol at home. That was one of the things that we had talked about early on in our marriage. And I'm going to be really honest with you, I don't know what shifted, why we started sometimes having it around. Um but but it was probably,
It was this world's messaging. It's
yes,
funny.
yes, part of that. But early on in our marriage, we just said, when we go out, we'll have one or two. When we're at ball games, we'll have one or two. And we were really good about that for a long time. Um, you know, and then I don't know where I don't remember a conversation. I would have to, talk to my husband. I don't remember us having a conversation about it, about like, well, let's just, probably what ended up happening was, it's cheaper if we just have a few drinks at home instead of going out to have drinks. Um, and so, yeah, and then it just slowly faded into, and, you know, started, it was just on the weekends. Then it was, well, Thursday's almost the weekend. Then it was, I had a long day. Then it was a couple of drinks a night, and then it was several drinks a night. And that probably lasted for 6 or 7 years. COVID got, and I hear that a lot when I'm talking to people about drinking habits,
Oh
that,
yeah. Yeah.
you know,
That's when I quit, but I realized I had a big problem and I was
okay.
gonna die if I didn't address it. But the alcohol stores were open and considered necessary, and the phone calls I got as an enrollment coach were off the charts for
Yeah.
people that were having meetings. And I've got my little coffee cup here, like
Yep.
having liquor in them
Yep.
because they
Yep.
could.
Right. Because they're at home. Yep.
Right.
I know. And that's where I feel like, it would be noon on a Wednesday, and I would grab a White Claw. We got nowhere to go. Everything shut down. I'm sitting in my lawn chair, you know, like, um, and so COVID is when it really got out of hand, because again, there was, it just, and it's so interesting. I hear it from people who even never really drank a lot prior to COVID, where they, I have a dear friend from church who said that to me. She's like, I started reading your story when you came out with your sobriety journey. And I went, oh my gosh, like we did that. Like we sat on a regular basis every day at 1 o'clock, we'd go sit on our deck and start having drinks. And she's like, and I wasn't even a drinker, but we still did it. So I feel like that was when a lot of people really fell into that trap. And it expanded for me. And I would say, I knew for probably 2 years that this was not, every time that I would grab my first drink, I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, tell me
Um,
what else was happening that really spoke to you about I shouldn't be doing this. I mean, you're an athlete. Did it slow you down? Were you concerned about
well,
did it
it's
affect your
interesting. Part of
marriage?
because since college volleyball, I found, well, I shouldn't say I found running. I always ran, but I never really ran competitively. And I would say now I'm still not. I am a very average runner at best. I am not a strong runner. Um, and so, I'm not qualifying for Boston. I'm running a very average mom pace, but I've run a lot of marathons now. I'll be running my 14th and 15th marathons this summer and
You're
fall.
so far beyond the average mom.
Well, well, I just mean in terms of like, when I look at the running community, I'm a very average runner. And
Yeah.
so I know the stats, they say at every marathon, less than 1% of the population runs a marathon every year. And so I know that that's part of why I do it. I enjoy like that piece of, but I I don't run marathons with like glorious finish times. And so, but I finish. And so you know, I I enjoy that. But what's interesting is that right in the beginning of COVID, I started having issues with my arches. My arches had like fallen. I've never had flat feet until now. But I didn't know at the time and it was affecting my running. And so I gave up for a long time the one thing that was really my like healthy, wonderful outlet. And so you couple COVID with my inability to go out and run pain free, and my already starting to struggle with alcohol journey. Um, it was the perfect storm. And so I
Yeah.
really do feel like if I could have kept running, I probably still would have drank heavily, but not as much as I did because I love to run and I know that I would want to get up tomorrow morning and go for a run. And
Well,
so,
let's take it piece by piece because I always like to share with people what was really happening
yeah.
in several areas of your life. So let's just start with was it affecting your relationships, whether it be how you showed up as a mother with your child or how you showed up as a wife with your husband? Was it affecting that at all?
So what's interesting is it wasn't, but it was, and specifically with my marriage. And so our marriage was great. But I say that now because I can say now it wasn't, but it was because it's not like we had marriage problems or marital issues. But fast forward now to over 2 years sober, and our marriage is so much more than it ever was. And so it clearly was in the way, but it wasn't like we didn't fight all the time. We weren't like screaming, shouting at each other. I wasn't like a raging, angry alcoholic. So
But it does affect
it
connection.
did.
That's what
Right.
I try and explain, that
Right.
I believe that God designed us for this incredible connection with
Yeah.
somebody from the opposite
Mm-hmm.
sex. And we desire something from people and we think the alcohol makes it, but that's not
Yes.
the God
Right.
designed
Right.
connection. And
Right.
it's so much better. And I think that's
Oh
what
my
you're
gosh.
describing. Oh
Yeah.
my
And
God.
that's exactly, you know, we are, we've always had I would say just a really easy relationship. Like we've always gotten along. We've always had fun together. Um, we've never had like attraction issues, intimacy issues. But I can't even say it any other way other than it's just way more than I ever thought it our marriage would be. Um, and yeah, it's just been really, really, really incredible to see that transform from the decision to be
Not
done with
drink.
alcohol, you
Yeah.
know?
And you both gave it up.
Yes, and he didn't really drink a ton. Um, he a little bit more during COVID, but not certainly not to the extent that I was drinking. And again, like he he doesn't have that, he doesn't chase that feeling like I chased it. And but he did when I decided to be done and I knew that I needed to do this and um that my life was not healthy with it. Um he decided to be done with me. So
No, that's
um
awesome.
oh like and I've talked to people's spouses before and encourage them, like if your spouse struggles with alcohol, the best love language would be for you to give it up with them. Like that's such a beautiful way for you to honor them and show them how much they mean to you. And that spoke volumes to me. And again, he didn't drink a lot, but he did enjoy going out every once in a while with a buddy and having a beer, and he doesn't even do that anymore. And so,
I love that.
I
Let's,
love it even more because I didn't ever like beer. I hate beer. I hate the smell of it.
I
And so it
didn't
wouldn't
either, but
even
I
bother
drank
me
it.
if he
Yeah.
went out for a beer because I wouldn't be tempted by that, but he still gives it up for me. So,
Let's move over to health because you're an athlete and you just
yep,
mentioned health.
yep,
And maybe we could talk about both physical and mental health because boy,
yes,
does
yep,
this affect
yep.
both.
Um, yes. So health, one of the things I started noticing, and it was right before COVID, I went in for an appointment, and it just, just a like routine checkup, and like my blood pressure was high, and I was like, I've never had high blood pressure. Like, what is, and so that was very interesting to me. My doctor had previously about a year prior, I had started taking um some medication for my stress and anxiety and depression, and some of the side effects were, weight gain and um increased blood pressure. And I had gained weight also. I don't think either one of the things were from the medication I was taking. I think it was from the amount of alcohol that I was consuming. Because since I stopped drinking, I have I'm back down to my normal weight, but I had put on almost 20 pounds. And so I dropped 20 pounds, and not instantly, like it came off in about a year's time, um, but yes, and I know you've seen my before and
Oh,
after
I
picture.
was going to
It's
mention
like,
that. Oh my gosh, you
it's insane.
posted a before and after picture in the private Facebook group we had, and you look old.
I look
And
old.
then you went to young. I was like, wow.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
again, I'm almost 42. 3 years ago, people thought I was much older than that. And now people think I'm in my early 30s. And so I have,
Yeah, no, you did. You looked 45 to 50 in that
yes,
picture.
yes, yes,
It
I
is
know.
crazy how
I
much
know. Yep.
just crazy how much it
Yep.
ages us.
Yes. And so, I'm like, while I don't enjoy, I don't want to say hate because I learn a lot when I look back at those old pictures. So I don't enjoy seeing myself that way. And in fact, there's times that I'm, scrolling through my pictures looking for something specific, and I'm like, oh, quick, let's get past that era. Let's go back. I don't want to see any of that, so I don't enjoy
I have
seeing that.
those too. Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
It's hard. Like it just makes me sad. And so I don't enjoy seeing those old photos, but again, I don't want to say I hate seeing them because uh, it's I equate things to sports. So, you miss a serve in volleyball and you got to figure out the why so you can get better. And so when you see those old photos and it like gives you this feeling, you figure out the why so you can get better. And so, you know, I um I appreciate it from that aspect because I have learned a lot. Um, but I'm very thankful to be on this side of the journey. Um, and
That's on
looking
most
back,
people that get to the other side. They're thankful.
yes,
It's just getting
yes,
there. It's the hard part.
it is. It is hard.
But I want to jump over to mental health because you
Yep.
already started with an anxiety and depression issue.
Yes. Yes.
I know for a fact from personal experience that alcohol
It increases it.
exasperates that
Yep.
because you're using a substance
Hmm.
to give you the dopamine hit, your receptors, your neurotransmitters that are supposed to make you happy stop
Yes.
working
Yep.
because you've got
Yep.
alcohol. It doesn't need to work,
Yep.
So
Well,
tell
and
me about
alcohol also increases your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And so there there's so many things going on that when we think, yes, I've had such a long day, I just need to relax and I'm going to use a glass of wine to do that. We get that momentary relaxation and gratification, but the long-term effects, especially if you use it over a repeated period of time, um, are so much more damaging. And I look at like one of the greatest ways that I can like see it in my everyday life is just in how I handle frustration and stress. I used to just blow my top at the silliest things. Again, I wasn't like not when I was drinking. But like
Yeah, I get
during
it.
the
I was the same
daytime,
way.
right? A glass of water spills over and I like my inability to control my stress and frustration um was crazy, because I think about like the silly things that I would just get mad about with my husband or my son that are like now like I laugh about that kind of thing. And so um you know yes, we start to just depend on that feeling that we get, that relaxation, that instant high we get from alcohol. And again, like the long-term effects increasing our stress hormone, like it it ends up damaging you and making you more stressed
I know. I used to hear that, but
about
I
that.
didn't really understand it until
No.
you can experience it and
Right.
I can say the same thing. It's like I used to go off my rocker on the
Yes.
smallest things, and I
Right.
just thought I was an impatient person. And I
Yes.
cried when I realized it wasn't me, it was
Right.
the substance. I
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, all these years I thought I was impatient. It was
Yes.
me. It was your body craving the
Yes.
substance.
Yep.
And so what happened to your stress and anxiety after you quit drinking? How did that
Um,
go
so
on?
I will say the first several months were very hard, very hard.
And let's just
And
wait, stop, because how
yeah,
did you quit? You just quit cold
I
turkey
just
and
quit.
found nothing.
I just quit cold turkey.
No programs, no
No
nothing.
program, no nothing.
Yeah,
The support of my
I want to
husband.
qualify hard
Yes,
because as you know, and you've seen in Facebook, it doesn't need to be hard, right?
right, right.
But they were hard because you just said no and it was hard. So go
Yes,
ahead.
yes. So, um, and again, the support of my husband was huge. Like him making the decision to also be done, that was huge. And I really like I didn't I didn't tell hardly anyone at first. It was my husband and a couple close friends. I have a great relationship with my parents. I didn't tell them. I was so ashamed of
Right.
disappointing them. And again, my parents, like they are Jesus with skin on. Like
They
that
are
is
just awesome.
they
Yeah.
are so awesome. They have loved me through so much yuck and ugly um and so they never gave me reason to think that they would be angry or upset with my actions, but I still just I couldn't tell them. I didn't tell my sister, either of my brothers. And I have a close relationship with all my siblings, my parents. But it was really just my husband and a couple close friends um, that I told and would share with, and they have been my cheerleaders from the get go. Um, and so I was 7 months. It was on my 7 month sobriety anniversary that I went public with it on social media. And that was really how my family found out, because I just couldn't look them in the eye and tell them. And
Yeah,
so
it brings on a lot of shame until
it
you're
does.
sort
It
of.
does. I remember, so as a teenager, I struggled with eating disorders. I had really bad, bad self-image. And, I remember, when I finally decided that I needed to talk to my family about it. And I sat in a room in my parents' house as a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, um, for like 2 hours before I could say, Mom and Dad, I have an eating disorder.
Oh,
Like, I couldn't say 2 hours, and I sweat the whole time. I was just in panic and we sat in silence most of the time, just awkward silence. Every once in a while, my parents would say, they just knew I had something I wanted to talk to them about, and they just sat there with me
yeah, and
patiently.
I just want to take a moment. Coach Anthony says this, and I love that. He says, "What's mentionable is manageable, but keeping everything inside, oh, the darkness and what
Oh my
Satan can
gosh.
do with that, you
Yep,
know?"
yep.
And that's why I'm trying to normalize this more. Like, hey, I gotta quit drinking. Hey, I gotta lose
Yeah,
10 pounds. It's like
right,
they're difficult because it's a
right,
change in habit. That's it.
right,
That's
right.
it.
Yes, and
Right?
that I remember sitting in that room with my parents, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting the response I got. And the response I got was really not much of a response, just calm. We're going to get through this. You'll be okay.
Oh,
And I remember just thinking, like, why did I just sit here in agony for 2 hours? Why didn't I just say it? Like my anxiety made it so challenging for me to just rip the Band-Aid off. Um, and that's how I felt about my sobriety journey. I couldn't just sit in a room and rip the Band-Aid off. And so my family found out when I shared my post on social media. We haven't really talked about it a lot. They just cheer me on when I share things. And
well, now they get to hear this story on the podcast.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so, again, I know that they wouldn't ever be mad at me, and I wasn't fearing that. It's just like you said, it brings on so much shame. And
The stigma,
um
that's what I'm trying to
yes,
get rid of. But so
yes,
let's fast forward because you're at maybe a year and a half into your
I'm 2
alcohol-free
years.
journey, huh?
2
Well,
years.
well, when you started the
Oh, okay.
devotional,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yes, yes, to
So
the
now
devotional.
what are you looking for? What's happening that you're
So,
looking for in the devotional?
I had just celebrated my 1 year sobriety anniversary. And I don't know, I guess I thought, like, when I got to a year, like, this magic weight would be lifted, that I would be like, "I did it, I've arrived, I'm there." And I was like, "And I still wanna drink. Like, is this ever going to go away?" And so I was looking for, I was looking for something to help me through this process, shift my mindset. I'm not a big reader. I struggle sitting down to read a book. I don't actually read my Bible. I listen to my Bible. I have my Bible read to me, because I can process it much better that way. And I actually do it when I'm working out. Um, and so, my workout time and my Devo time kind of go hand in hand. And so I was looking for something that was easy to read. And I saw your book on Amazon, and, um, I just like read some of the reviews, and everything that I kept reading, like short devotionals, quick, easy. And I'm like, that's it. That's what I need. Um, and so grabbed it, and, we were actually heading out on a road trip, and it came like just a couple of days before our road trip started. And I just loved it. And it became such a game changer for me. So I received it, um, at just about month 13 of my sobriety journey. And, about a week before that anniversary. And, um, it was such a game changer for me. And the biggest piece of that devotional was the gratitude journaling and shifting my focus from what I couldn't have to everything that I did have. And a lot of what I did have was because of this decision to be done with this one thing. And
Isn't that crazy?
I
Solving
instantly
cognitive.
realized that, like, all of these things. And like, I should have had my book with me. I actually have it on the counter. I want to go get it quick and read some of my first few.
Yeah, go
uh
ahead. Go
let me
ahead.
let me grab it. All right. So I want to just read through some of my first um daily gratitude. So this was day one, right before we went on our road trip. Last year, my husband and I went on a little weekend getaway. His birthday is in February, and so we left for our road trip, late February, but we went up in northern Minnesota. That's our little spot that we get away. Um, and so my daily gratitude journaling was my husband and our weekend up north together. Um, my son, our miracle. So our son is adopted, and so he's always our miracle. Number 3 was my parents and all they do for us, and how big they love us and how big they love me. Our upcoming trip to North Carolina, that's where we were going on our road trip. My sister and her friendship, my nieces, um, our our home and our working vehicles, my husband's job and the financial freedom. Having life was number 9. Um, and number 10 was our church. And so like I look at some of those things and like how I started viewing those things after I made the decision to be sober. Um and so like day 2 we were on our road trip. So some of them were like the ocean, um our God's creation, sunshine, a place to rest, um just things that I never would think of unless I was forced to think about all the things that you're grateful for, you know? Um, and so it's just, I love, I loved that mindset shift of what, what do you have? Not what did you give up? Um, and then even further into it, then it was thinking about like my health. So many of my gratitude journals included just being alive and, being present, being here, being able to enjoy these moments.
Well,
Uh,
and that's
yeah,
exactly it. So you got it. It's a journey about understanding how much better your life gets
yes,
so that you can choose the
yes,
path that you want for it. You can
yep,
continue this journey of
yep,
Wow. Like I'm paying attention to clouds and sunsets.
Yes,
It's kind of
yes,
really weird.
yes,
There's another podcast, Debbie. She said the same thing. I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but I'm like, I look around and like life is beautiful. Right?
right,
And that's how
right,
I rest speed forward too. It's just like what needs to get done.
yes,
Check, check, check,
yes,
check.
yes,
And
I know. It was so I know like partway through I started going because the devotional just says, write down 10 things that you're grateful for. Well, I started getting into like 15s and 20s because I'm like, I I don't want to stop at 10 because I have way more than 10. Um, so there were definitely days that I wrote way more than 10 things. And so yeah, like I look at all of the positives that have come from that one decision, and I'm sure you've heard this before because a lot of people have paraphrased this. It's been around on social media, but um, you know, sobriety, and especially on the beginning, is hard, but so is addiction. Choose your hard,
oh
you
yeah.
know? And they make that analogy for a lot of things. Weight loss is hard, but so is being overweight. Choose your hard. Um,
Yeah, I
it's
like that.
right. It's there's hard parts about all of these things, but which hard should we choose? And so,
I will
um,
just say that, and you see this in our private Facebook. It's not always hard when
no,
you did the hard way.
I did. The way I did it was hard.
Yeah, but it's not always hard when we have this, when we prepare ourselves with the right mindset, and when we
Mhm.
have the community and we
Yep.
have God and we
Yep.
have it's not always hard. It's like,
Yep.
as a matter
Yep.
of fact, there are moments, but
Yep.
the changing neurological pathways and
Yes.
renewing our minds,
Yep.
it's not always hard. But there's
Yep.
always temptation. And what
Yes.
I like to tell people is I'm more tempted about chocolate cake than I am about wine, which was my
Yes.
favorite
That
go-to
was your
drink.
favorite.
Right. And so there's always temptation in life. And it's like,
Yep. Yep.
choose your hard, choose your substance, choose your
Yep.
life.
Yes.
There's a
Yep.
consequence to when I
Yes.
eat too much chocolate cake. There's a consequence when I drink too much alcohol.
Yep.
And that is exactly, you have encapsulated what the journey is about, comparing life with and without it.
And
And
without.
going, wait a minute, why did
Right.
I even
Right.
use that?
Right. The other thing that I have found interesting, and I'm sure you will resonate with this, but like how eye-opening it's been since I've removed alcohol of how our society is trying to brainwash people into using it. I mean, it has blown my mind at times that I'm like, I never would have recognized this propaganda when I was drinking. But now
No,
that I've
no, I
completely
go through it with
it,
my kids. I'm like, look, guys, I just want you to be aware. And I
yes.
hope they don't think I'm crazy. I don't want to be judgmental. I understand where they are. I
Yep.
taught them this,
Yep.
and I bought into it myself,
Yep.
but there is you, and it sounds like you do this too. This is what I want to say is I don't have a problem today, but at some point, I don't even know when I crossed the line, but there is an invisible line
Hmm.
that you cross that switches
Yep.
from it's your choice to it's not your choice.
Right.
And unfortunately, everybody before they cross the line says I'm okay.
I'm fine.
And
Right.
then the next moment they're
Yep.
not. And
Yep.
it's just scary.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and I don't know if you've encountered this. I have actually encountered a lot of people that have said, "Wow, that is I'm so proud of you. I don't think I could do that." And when I hear that, my first thought is that means you probably need to. Like
Yeah, yeah, there's a
if you're
definitely
in
a
that
sense.
because I remember being in that state. I don't like why? Why would anybody do that? I remember thinking that too. Like why would someone give up alcohol? You know, I have learned so much. I have learned so much on this journey. And so yes, it's just very eye opening though how much our society it tries to push that on everyone. I mean, you see like the commercials you see, and again, it's just like it's just everywhere. It's splattered everywhere. Um, and it's very misleading when
It is when you
you know,
assess the effect it has on your life. Yeah,
yes, yes,
it's a massive, it's a lie of massive proportions.
yes, yes. You know, and you
Yeah.
see commercials of people hanging out in a bar and they all got a drink and everyone's like well kept and calm and organized and just socializing. It's like that
That's
it's
not
maybe
the
that way for 5 minutes.
right, right.
And so um yeah, it's just it's been very it's been very eye-opening and interesting. And yeah, but here I am 2 years and counting, and
Congratulations.
thank you.
And
um and I'm excited. Like I'm at a point where I love sharing my story. I
I
love
love
having it
that
out
you're
there.
sharing it.
um I do. I love sharing it because I just feel like there are I know that I know there are so many people that are where I was.
Amen. And I hope that we're running out of time, but I hope that your message really hits a lot of people because it is different, right?
Yeah.
It is very
Yeah.
different. And it's your situation is eye-opening because of the background and no history and no trauma. And, it's where a lot of people are. So, and before we close out, I wanted, if you could just kind of reflect on our conversation today and do a call out. If you wanted people to know one thing,
One
what
thing.
would you let them know?
If there was one thing I wanted people to know, it's that they can do it and they deserve it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What a beautiful message.
They deserve it.
Erica, I might have to have you on another podcast because, yeah, we could just keep going and going. But thank you so much for sharing this
You're
story. And like I
welcome.
said,
Thank you for asking. This has been an honor. Like I seriously, I love it. I love sharing. I love sharing this now. So
good.
yeah.
Good. All right. Then I don't even know how to end this. Thank you
I know.
again.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hold on.